Hi, everybody. You are in from Low Tech Roots to Online Readiness, and we are so happy to have you all here today. I'm Elizabeth Gordon, Assistant Director of International Learning Technologies and Instructional Design at ASU, and my colleagues are here with us, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Sure. I'm Kim Welch. I'm the Principal International Instructional Designer and Trainer. I always have to read my title. Is that sad? And I've been working at ASU for 4 years. I have a background in teaching languages and a doctorate in learning technologies.
Hi, Erlina Mangan. My title is really simple. I'm IT Project Manager. IT Project Manager. I was actually asked to introduce myself, and I kind of had a smile because they had asked, well, one of the things that most of the people want to know is how long you've been working with OpenEDX. Well, compared to my broader career in technology as well as ed technology, it's quite small. It's very modest, only about 2.5 years. But I have a much broader career in technology, so I worked for decades in technology. I started out at Hewlett-Packard Company, where we were doing logistics for classroom support. So we configured servers, dumb terminals, and Ethernet cable, and sent that out to customer clients, and did HP UX as well as HP OpenView. So that kind of started my career. And of course, from there, we went to pre-configured laptops all the way up to the cloud as we are doing today. So I do have a broad background, and I'm really happy, the modest experience with OpenEX, to be part of our learning community.
And I kind of assumed, and I shouldn't because I do see new faces, but I've been around the OpenEdX community for about 10 years now. I'm a historian by trade, but been dabbling now in instructional design and keep getting drawn deeper and deeper into the tech side of things. It's like this quicksand approach kind of a thing, but I'm super excited to share kind of some things. Just a couple things we want you to walk away with today. One, practical ways to design online learning for low-tech regions, and ideas for a full menu of items to digitally enable institutions and regions. So let's talk with just a couple of level setting thoughts of what we mean. By low-tech, couple of ways to measure this. One is the percent of the population that has accessed the internet in the last 3 months. This was the best statistic we could find that covered the entire planet, and it's old, 6 years old. I actually would bet that it's quite outdated in terms of post-COVID world. However, I would imagine that everyone would have increased a little bit. I don't imagine that the spots you see that are labeled as low tech are no longer low tech. I think they're just not as low tech as they were in 2018. So I think in terms of just a measure of comparative availability of technology, I think it's a pretty fair estimation. Another way to look at this is the speeds at which they access the internet. This statistic is a little bit more recent, so 2021. And again, it's the comparison of below median speed to above medium speed. So you see kind of the red and the darker regions are kind of where you have slow internet. Just for context, because we will mention an Arizona project, pulled up this map, which is currently in Arizona where we live, the places that have access to either 25 download, 3 megabytes per second upload. That's dial-up, really slow, like wouldn't load anything functional, really in terms of talking. So that's the map on the left. The map on the right has that 100 megabytes per second. Again, still really, really slow. And you can see in Arizona, there are a couple of areas where they just don't have high-speed internet. And so those are some of the projects. We'll mention a couple in Arizona that address populations that live places like that. So just kind of for context. Want to talk a little bit now about why. Why do we do this? I actually joke, and it's like the oldest joke ever. So if you saw me last year, you've heard this now 5 times, but I joke that they would pull my ASU credentials if I didn't show you this slide, but it's our charter. It's very short. It actually was really great listening to Georgia Tech's presentation this morning. I think their charter, the 5 big bets or 4 big bets that he put up are mirror very much what this is. It's not by whom we exclude. We don't care about that whole acceptance rate. That's that small percentage. It's about whom we include. and whether or not they succeed. We also, public research institutions, so research and discovery of a public value is very important to us. We do a lot of that federal funding and research and things like that as well. But it's also about assuming a responsibility for the communities we serve. And since ASU Online has students everywhere, the communities we serve is everywhere. And that's why we do some of the things that we do in some of the places we do and some of the places that we partner with. So if you kind of wonder, some of the projects we mentioned, you're like, why are you there? This is the why. And again, it's about access to education. I also joke that I can't get out of talking about any of what we do without showing this. Again, some of the statistics are a little bit older, but the point still holds true. The global demand for higher education is growing at an exponential pace in terms of needing some kind of a degree in order to do the jobs that are available. So the projection in 2015 was that by 2030, there'd be 410 million jobs that needed some kind of a degree. And we can't meet that demand. In order to meet it, we would have had to have, starting back then, build 4 universities that each serve 80,000 students every week for 15 years. Not possible. So literally the only way to meet the demand is to increase the capacity of existing institutions. So again, this is why we do what we do, because the only way to increase that capacity, you're going to run out of seats in classrooms. So the only way is to do the virtual seats. And so that's, again, why we do. Just a quick snapshot, bragging just a little bit at ourselves because our numbers are still bigger than Georgia Tech, so they can outrank us on a couple of things, but we have more. But again, 14,000 international students from last fiscal year from 157 different countries. So again, very few countries on earth we haven't touched in some way, shape, or form. 340,000 students are enrolled in 30 institutions that we partner with through a thing called the ASU Santana Alliance. We have over 300 different international projects, and that's academic partnerships where we do for-credit stuff. And then there's all this stuff that my colleagues and I do, which aren't strictly academic, which kind of get into all of the other things. So again, partnerships all around the world, reaching a whole lot of people. So that's the stats, that's the why. Let's talk about what we do with some of these partners. First and foremost, we've got some flavor principles. So I've already used the menu analogy. We're going to do a lot of really kind of cheesy menu kind of themes going on here. So the flavor principles for all the things we do are 4 basic principles. One is paying attention to bandwidth. When you've got low tech, low bandwidth, you have to pay attention to that. You don't want to build a really super heavy application that's going to run off of the internet and consume huge amounts of bandwidth. You have to pay attention to that when you're designing, when you're building, in every step that you do. So lightweight, low res, both in your platform, in the tools, and in the assets. So you don't download an image and have it at 5,000 by 1,000. You kind of size that down so it's a little bit more lightweight. Extra support. At every stage of the development process, whether you are just developing content or developing an actual platform, you have to pay attention to low bandwidth in your design principles. Think about it from the very, very beginning. What does this look like on a mobile app? What does this look like off of a low speed internet? How does it operate? What does the system do? Also, when you're talking about the people interactions, you have to start with the whole, what do you know already, and build from there, not the assumption of that you know what this high-tech tool is or that high-tech tool is. Flexibility, times, schedules, technology use, ability to access content. One of the other things you run into in a lot of low-tech regions is sometimes the internet just goes. So having a deadline that's next week, if the internet goes for half of that week, you might need to be flexible. So just being a lot more flexible on how you approach things is a major flavor principle for us. The other is meeting them where they are. This might seem obvious, but it bears repeating. If your population doesn't speak English first, what do you need to do to kind of be supportive of non-native speakers of English? Do you want to build in not English? So localization of just the content in the language. Are there cultural adaptations? Are there ways they refer to tools or things that you have to switch. So just paying attention to those, both in, your tech, but also in your content, making sure that you, for example, in a region where having a pet dog isn't a ubiquitous thing, you don't want to use having a pet dog as an example in your classroom. Those kinds of things are kind of important. And delivering content in ways that feels natural, culturally relevant, and adapting to kind of where they are and then helping them move along. One example from Arizona I will use actually, we have a program called WeGrad at ASU, where we go into school districts where they have low college enrollment rates, predominantly because their families never went to college either. So whole schools full of potential first generation students. Those students are not going to have parents who are going to be able to talk through them on how do you get ready for the SAT? Which classes do you need to take so that you're eligible to go to a high quality institution? All of those kinds of conversations. What does it even mean to apply to college? How does that process look like? So WeGrad actually, again, low tech regions, these folks don't have laptops, don't have access to the internet. We actually worked with them to develop a text-based delivery system for a course to teach parents about how to help their children get ready for college starting in elementary school. The kinds of things you just start to think about, just start acculturating the parents about helping their students over text message courses that could just arrived on their phone, and little videos, short little videos that could be watched, not taking up a whole lot of bandwidth. So really cool, kind of just meeting them where they are. And so then we bring to kind of where our menu is. This is it. We've got 6 recipes that we're going to walk through now, kind of talking about what each of those recipes brings to the table, what the options are that are available. I feel like there was a point I was supposed to make that I missed. No, that was it. And I'll turn it over to Kim to talk about the first one. Oh, I guess part of that is not every project, there was a point I missed. Not every project has the same needs. And that's part of that meeting them where you are. It's like, if what you need isn't a full-blown mobile app that has all the bells and whistles, then don't offer a mobile app to that project. Sometimes what they need is some of these other things. So it's one of the first things we do with the project is, what is it you really need? What problem are we trying to solve? How do we do that? And which recipe from our menu are we going to pull together to help you most move you forward? So Kim, why don't you talk about pedagogy?
All right, so mine is the first, and we pronounce it differently. Pedagogy. We can argue this all day long. It doesn't matter. All right, so pedagogy, that's where I come into our situation, some of the recipes that we're making. And so these are some of the things that we do when it comes to pedagogy. So for example, we'll take faculty. If you think faculty in low-tech regions, some of them have never even taken an online course. And so we kind of start there with them first. And our online course teaches them about online pedagogy. This is their first really foray into this type of situation. And so we make them students first so they can feel what it feels like. And we try to put in the types of technology that we would like to see them use in the future. We give them just a 3-week online workshop. Now, because some of the flexibility issues of, internet turning it off, we actually can extend that to 5 weeks if that is the way that has to happen. But so we do 3 weeks of an online course just on pedagogy. That's our base course. They go to other courses from there, but basically they need that first foray in. And then we have, because I'm trying to work myself out of a job, so I do the first training, and then I take some of those people who've been trained and I make them into trainers. So we have a 3 to 4 month process where we put them in as observers of someone else doing the training, and then they co-teach a little bit, and then they become the actual trainers. And I'm watching them this entire time to see them become this. And then we're able to scale. So it's not just me teaching anymore. They're teaching each other, plus bringing their own context into it, which is fantastic. So we do that. We do tech training, hands-on tutorials for several of the different types. I do so many videos. I'm sure they're tired of hearing my voice. Just tutorials of how to use the technologies. I try to answer their questions through tutorials like this so that I can always keep just scale it to all the people who will have the same questions. Then we also have an instructional design grad certificate. So this is where we train people at these different institutions. By now we are talking almost 60 institutions that we've trained. So we have instructional designers that are trained to help the faculty, because faculty usually don't have a lot of pedagogical background, not even in the United States. Nowhere really are they forced to go through a course where they have to learn how to teach, even in a regular classroom, let alone online. So we add instructional designers to each of the institutions where we can, so that they can also help the faculty. And then, of course, we have webinars that answer questions. For instance, right now, AI is a huge thing. So we create things that are about AI, or we have some of them, Bloom's taxonomy isn't necessarily something that they know. So we'll create a webinar about Bloom's taxonomy and syllabi, which is that concept is different in different places. So we'll do those types of things. And then office hours, where people can come in and ask us questions very specific. We try to get a few people in there so that if we need to make breakout rooms, we can do that. Just by way of stats, and I might have to look at our stat sheet here, we have, I think, 150, more than that, TOTs at, I think, 52 institutions. That's right. And then certified instructional designers, we have 150 at 58 institutions. We've trained over 20,000 faculty members this way. And when I say that, so it started out, we were doing the training. By now, 75% of that training is being done by their trainers. So it's really being contextualized by them, which we love to see. We have nearly 60 online courses going on in one of our trainings. So you imagine they had 0 online courses before, and now they have about 60, and this is in the past 2 years. So they're starting to build, and it's augmenting every month. We start to get more and more people asking for course shells. So we have about 1,100 course shells that are out there with people who are creating either fully or partially online courses. So we're trying to do a lot with them. And they're really taking off with it. So we have some great projects. Low-tech ingredients specifically. So there are things that we mentioned before that we have to put into these recipes for low-tech environments. Low bandwidth platforms, we always have to make sure that's there, mobile friendly. And sometimes, like she said, sometimes they only have even flip phones with tech space. So we really have to look at what they have. We always add extra digital learning skills, and some of these, even how to write an email is something that we've had to train people on, because not all institutions have email as their basis of communication. So we've had to go, like, you don't put everything in the subject line, you put it in the body, that type of thing. Really, you have to take it to whatever level they're coming from. We go to what communications or communication platforms they're using. WhatsApp and Telegram becomes, and we don't use that in the United States very much. In Europe, WhatsApp is, pervasive. Not in the United States so much. So we're like, okay, we need to learn WhatsApp, we need to learn Telegram, we need to come to them. So we do that. We do a lot of recorded live sessions, because if you can imagine, so I do live sessions, and I watch the statistics on Zoom. Some people try to enter 10 times and they get kicked out within 5 minutes, because Zoom it takes from their bandwidth. And so they get kicked out enough that I do recorded sessions that can be downloaded later for whatever they miss. And they're so good to keep on trying to come back in. Many of us would get frustrated and not, but they keep doing it, and then they'll watch the live sessions. Downloadable assets. And this QR code will tell you a little bit about the ways to create assets that are easier for low bandwidth environments. And so I've written with one of our student workers from Ghana. We wrote just a little article about things that you can do for that. And then, of course, universal design for learning, multiple means of representation. So just because you're dealing with people who might not read all the heavy text, we put it in several different formats. And then we have, like she said, compassion-free electricity, internet outages, late night usage. Some of these people are paying for data packages that are cheaper at nighttime. So they are up at midnight doing their homework, right? Because it's cheaper to actually turn in their stuff at that time. So we have to pay attention to those things and be very careful about the way we design. So it's not this is due at 10 p.m. It's midnight or beyond. So we pay attention to that. And then I will turn the time over to Elizabeth for the next recipe.
All right, student prep is our next recipe, and this is probably, if I've presented at previous conferences, if you've seen me before, this is the one that most of what we are involved in is student prep. So we've got a couple of things we keep in mind. We have a lot of Student Success Week courses. This is like how to study, time management. We do kind of academic integrity. What is it? How do you do it? Just a short prep on how do you even take an online course. We're just like a super short course. These courses both build skills. So we also have like Kim mentioned, like how to use an email, how to use Word, how to create a PowerPoint presentation, those kinds of things. But these courses do more than just give them those digital skills. They give them a space to build confidence in just operating in an online space. Imagine if your first online course was one where whether or not you got an A was the difference between you keeping your scholarship because it killed your GPA, that kind of thing, where it's like you don't want to have your very first online course be a really high stakes course. So having these short courses that have no stakes associated with them whatsoever, it's just you getting the skills, really builds that digital confidence. Digital confidence is a huge component of a lot of what we do in terms of getting students ready. We actually have 4 different platforms on Open edX that run these kinds of courses. We've got about 750,000 learners on those 4 platforms, and we're up at 3-point-something million enrollments. I had that number stuck in my head and now it's gone, but somewhere in that neighborhood, somewhere over 3 million enrollments, which really amazing, kind of getting that kind of low stakes energy done. Again, tutorials are a huge component of that digital literacy. Just how do you attach an email to, or a document to an email? How do you upload a document in this bot? How do you drag and drop, even copy paste? All of those digital skills, it's assume, make no assumptions and provide all of the supports for all of those skills for digital literacy. Similarly to how Kim mentioned, meeting them in the channel where they are comfortable communicating as a first step. So text message, email, WhatsApp, Telegram, wherever it is, meet them there and then get them onto your platform and your stuff. But be prepared to have that video that you share out in the Telegram group or, a PDF tutorial of how to do things. And one of the other kind of big things in a lot of these environments is making sure you address the question of access to technology. Don't make those assumptions, but some of the places where we have the students don't have their own laptops. So the universities have adapted to opening a computer lab that was previously used for their computer science programs. And like now it's open at specific times where any student can come in, log into the computer and do their online class. Being prepared for a mobile app. Maybe that's an intervention that works for your specific. If they all have smartphones, that would be an intervention that would work. We have a program at ASU that works with refugee populations where they've actually used a solar-powered hotspot that connects to tablets where the content is preloaded onto the tablet, and the folks can take the tablet, go back home, do the courses, and then come back, reconnect to the hotspot, and it uploads their course content through this solar-powered hotspot. So again, whatever it is that access to technology looks like, being flexible to being ready to address kind of those challenges is kind of that thing. So being ready to meet them to bridge that technical gap. And now I'm going to turn it over to Erlina to talk about some more about the tech.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. And in my presentation, rather than actually go through the slides, but I want you to look at what those topics are on the slide, and I'm going to present a use case. So in mine, I'm going to talk about, with being in our food analogy here, is I'm not going to talk about LMS. I'm not going to talk about a virtual classroom. I'm actually going to talk about meal plans. Let's talk about why at ASU meal plans are important. Our Tempe campus houses about 50,000 students, and about 24% of those students live on campus. And many of those students are, as Elizabeth spoke, first-time generation college students. And that's why meal plans matter at ASU. And amidst the chaos of figuring out university life for them, they have to figure out where they're going to eat, when they're going to eat, and why. Or where they're going to eat. So they also have to do, in terms of orientation, They have to get orientated. They have to register. They have to get their ID cards. They have to move into their dorms. And all among that, they have to feed themselves. And so about 5 or 6 years ago, I was actually involved in a project where we're a high-tech institution with a low-tech meal plan. So 5 or 6 years ago, our meal plan was the students had to go and check off a box on a piece of paper what meal plan that they wanted. They also had to have a physical meal plan card that was separate from their ID card that got them into their dorm. And they also had to go, and we had a central POS next to where the meals were served that would update the balances in batch, only one time a daily at midnight. And if they wanted to know the balance of their meal plan, they had to walk to the central union, and they had to stand in line and wait at the door for the meal plan services to look on a computer to see what their meal plan was. And of course, if they'd eaten during the day, it wasn't included. So this project really wasn't about just giving them a new point of service. Machines at the cashiers. Really, it was about, I needed new POS machines, and I need those POS machines to work down the street at the Pizza Hut, because they could also order online and have that delivered and all that be on their meal plan. I had to have real-time data for them, that for instant balances. I had to have a mobile-ready platform, because a lot of our students, they actually don't have laptops. They have mobile phones. And I wanted to integrate that with the ASU ID plan so they could have one ID. And of course, the meal plans get really complicated. It wasn't just you have 42 meals. It's like you can have 42 meals, or you can have 7 coffees, six snacks, and 2 meals a week, or you can have just coffee at Starbucks. So making this easy, really, in terms of the tech side, because that's what I'm coming from, really wasn't that easy. As you know, the first part was really finding a vendor that could support all of this. Do they have a mobile app? Do they have APIs to the mobile app? Can you translate those APIs into plain English, right? Can you make those user-friendly? Can you make an administrator be able to get to that information without calling IT? That was a big thing, and we did it. And in asking all of these questions, you also wanted to say, what's going to make it easier for the students? So this was really beyond the platform of just having a meal plan platform. It was really about the process, the strategy, having something familiar, and having it work for the students coming on campus. So again, I hope I touched all of those different points. Now, my last story that I want to talk about, and I kind of, my heart flutters when I do this, is a pandemic story. And of course, like many of you, you might be rolling your eyes, but I'm still traumatized by it. I don't know about the rest of you. Let me see if I can find my cheat sheet. Thanks for your patience. Here we go. In 2020, COVID-19 hit. And of course, every educator knows that our classrooms were dry. Everybody was wiped out, and we needed to know what to do. So Arizona State University already had a foundation. And again, if you want to go to the next slide, through this story, I'm going to talk about these different things as a use case of what actually we did. And I was, just FYI, I was involved in these things. We didn't just turn to technology when the pandemic hit. We know that we needed to have human resilience, we need to have collaboration, and we need to have that willingness to learn under pressure. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that as well. ASU already had the technology in motion. We already had a professional license with Zoom, and that meant that every student, every staff member, and every instructor already had access to the Zoom Pro account. We had at that time about 140,000 students Our number certainly has increased. That was just 5 years ago. We had 79,000 students on campus and about 61,000 students online. And we already had about 3,000 students, faculty members, already teaching exclusively online through our various mediums, such as Canvas is what we're using. And we had 5,400 in-person faculty members that taught specifically in the classroom. So what we needed to do was to get those 5,400 instructors onto using virtually. And it's not just about, hey, here's a virtual classroom, go ahead, here you go. The classroom itself, it's a cultural change for instructors that, and I'm sure Kim can attest to that, that instructors that teach in person, it's the face, it's the interaction, it's the hand greeting with the students. So what we did in terms of how did we get this to work? So we partnered with the colleges, the departments, the schools, the 300 members from the University Technology Office. We've actually changed names to Enterprise Technology Office. We were all involved. We were all engaged. We all had a role. We did train the trainer programs so that the departments, schools, universities could help their faculty learn how to use Zoom. We had dedicated help desk, and we had a dedicated VRU line that would go, I'm an instructor, I need help on Zoom. We also had one-on-one coaching sessions. We had group sessions in which we monitored that all the instructors attended. And we had the Zoom first day tech support. So all of us had a schedule from the technology office to participate in their first Zoom session with the instructor so that they reduce their anxiety and help manage the classroom for us. Now, it all wasn't perfect. Of course, we had some instructors cut us off midway through class. We had some Zoom bombing before we could take that out, right? And we had some instructors that waited longer for support than we would like. But all of this is about resilience. It's about change management. It's not just producing a guide and having a technology for them. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Kim.
I'll take it. I love hearing the stories, and I worked at a different institution during that COVID-19, and it was hard. So these are some of the things that we do. You know, you can it's kind of the same that we've done for the other things, just making sure there's a lot of tutorials, lots of flexibility. We meet them where they are, and we're looking at the platforms, making sure that they work for them. So the next recipe, and this one is a little bit different. I come from a background, my doctorate was in a very socio-constructivist learning environment and I noticed this as we talk about AI, I kind of miss out on this. So AI, I love talking to my AI. It becomes a therapist. It becomes my dream analyzer. It becomes everything for me, right? But I love talking to people, and that's why I come to these types of conferences, because I think the people part is really inspiring. And so we try to get people together to talk about things. We join communities of practice of all sorts. So for example, we have a community of practice on how to design for global audiences. We have that at ASU. So I joined that, and I make sure, and we do a lot of AI in that. So we do that kind of thing. So communities of practice are hugely important for us and for our communities as well. And I don't think I've mentioned the types of communities we work with or the international projects we have, but we do a lot with Africa. So several countries in Africa, from Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Ghana, Benin, and then also we include Lebanon, Costa Rica. So we have a lot of places, and I know that we have someone. I was just talking about an institution in Benin yesterday who was someone here who's from the area. So we work with a lot of communities, and if you can imagine, some of these communities have never really had the opportunity to talk to each other. So we give them opportunities to talk to each other, whether it's through messaging apps. So we create groups for everyone to talk to each other, or we have live meetups where we talk about things. And some of my most successful live meetups have not been me talking. It's someone from the group who's showing a new technology that worked at their institution, and they want to share it. And people love that. All the feedback came back about that type of thing where they're sharing with each other the things that are working in their environment. Fantastic. Regional conferences and exchanges, peer interaction and online trainings. We have an online platform called Baobab. How many people are on Baobab? 75,000 people on Baobab, and this is across Pan-African, so it's across the African continent. And people, it's a place where people can learn and a place where people can meet. It's kind of your LinkedIn for the African continent. Fantastic for them to be able to get together. We've even had, so if you imagine, online learning hasn't been much of a thing in many of these countries, and so there's not a lot out there in the research journal sphere on these things. They're starting to get together and they've published articles together because they can say, yes, this is happening in Ethiopia and in Kenya. Let's talk about it. And so they're starting to do some comparison things. So getting them together has been a hugely important piece of their learning. They inspire each other and they learn from each other, and I learn from them as I'm doing. So it helps me with my job as well. So it's been a really great part of it. And then I'll turn this over to you for, I think, the last one.
Our last recipe. Yeah, we were going to reiterate. Reiterate. Pretty much the same design principles, but there it is. All right, so you imagine the best meal you've ever had. And really, you could eat it all by itself, but if you don't have a beverage to go with it, it's not really the same. Now, again, mine would be a glass of wine. Maybe yours is a beer. Maybe it's water. But still, that analogy, sticking with the food, that's what leadership is. You can do a project without leadership. You could probably get some things done, build a platform, hold classes, all that kind of stuff. Without leadership, it's just not going to go down quite as well. So let's talk about a couple of the principles that we've got to cover here. And yeah, I saw the warning, so I know we've got 10 minutes left. Couple of things to take into account. One of those is modernizing institutional missions. A lot of institutions haven't even talked about digital anything in their missions. And so really stopping and taking a look at what does this look like as an institution? What do we want to do? Do we, in fact, want to grow the size of our student body population? A lot of institutions, yes, that's what they're after. Our Ethiopia project, they have too many young people to fit in their institutions over the next 10 years. They have to expand their capacity. That is the mission. We work with an institution in Costa Rica where they're like, no, we don't want to grow in size. What we want is to just get better at what we are doing and be more effective at the principles that we're learning. So it's like, what is it that is the goal? So having that good mission is the first part. And then what does it look like to get there? What is that transformation roadmap? Are you trying to get there tomorrow? We have quite a few partners who, yes, they want to get there tomorrow. Is it a 10 years from now? So what is that roadmap and what are you going to address first? You can't tackle everything all at once. So what is it that are there, and what do those learning plans look like to change? So stopping and looking at what are we going to tackle first? Is it technology in your classrooms? Is that the first step? Is it a learning management system? Which technology, which digital transformation is the first place to start? Is it how your professors think about technology? Maybe that's the first step. Agility and resilience, again, not to re-traumatize us all, but yeah, COVID taught all of us this, right? That ability to change, to pivot, to think about things different, to be able to just change. That leadership for change and resilience has to come from the top down, or from a leader to the entire institution, whichever direction that is. Building that change ideology in is important thing. And sometimes that takes additional training to just let's stop and talk about change. What does change look like? How do we change what we do without changing who we are as an institution? I think the Georgia Tech president mentioned this, really great kind of thoughts to think about before you embark on anything. One of the things Kim mentioned also, connecting across sectors and regions. It's really easy. We've heard this from a lot of partners. Oh, well, you're doing that, of course, because you're ASU. Like, yeah, when you've got 200,000 learners, most of whom are doing something with technology, yeah, and we've got a VR really cool thing where our bio programs are looking at healing dinosaurs in this really cool VR experience. Yeah, we've got really cool tech. And it's a lot. Sometimes it's hard for someone coming from a low tech background to go, well, you can do it, of course, but we can't. where we connect them with other partners. Like, okay, oh, you are our neighbor country, similar context, similar experience. You did it. Okay, I can do it too. So sometimes having those connections and partnerships to basically share resources, even ideas, just that support through that makes really important. And then just developing leadership at all level, being able to, we talked about our Train the Trainer program, where it's literally peer coaching, peer mentoring. One professor who's successful at teaching an online course, turning to other professors and saying, I did it, you can do it, here's some steps I took. Really empowering those kind of processes really works. In our project, we had a project of 10 institutions all working together, all going through the same process. It was a COVID response project, and really having them get together and talk about, what are you doing? How are you empowering this? Which things are you addressing first was a really important one. Similar project in the Philippines, where literally the first thing they looked at when they looked at our menu of options, they said, leadership, we're just going to do that for the whole first year. Leadership training, and that's where they got started. With the Ethiopia project, with 50 institutions we're working in, the 2 institutions that rose the fastest in terms of getting their professors through started at the top. One of them, one of our second Train the Trainer, I think at ECSU, his first locally held training of that instructor training, he had the academic vice president and one of the vice chancellors as one of the students. They got a 90% pass rate, where we'd been rating about 30%. In every one of the sessions he held, he had someone from their leadership team be a member of the classroom. And every single session, they had a 90% pass rate. Kind of hard to drop out of a class that your vice chancellor is taking, So again, those kinds of leadership interventions. One of the other institutions, the university president just held an all staff meeting and said, everybody go do this. And they got like 75% of their staff done in like 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, there it is. So all of this, lots of recipes, lots of great things. Important thing to note is how do you put our menu into practice for you? First is start with practical ingredients that fit your context. What worked for one of our projects first may not work for you. What is the biggest thing you need to tackle? Start with those few recipes that are going to work for your context, a few practical steps, start there, and then you can move on. The menu is replicable. It doesn't have to be all of it. It doesn't have to be the entire university. Maybe it's just one department. Maybe it's just one school. Maybe it's just one degree program. Start small. Replicate, then cook wide and move from there. And then I think Erlina mentioned this. Everybody has a role in digital transformation. This is not just the ICT department's thing. It's not just something that comes out of the president's office. Everyone has a role in digital transformation from the top to the bottom. And so get everyone excited about it, get everyone informed about it, and support everyone through the process in order to make it happen. And that is our presentation. We mentioned quite a few different programs at ASU. If you are interested in them, the links are here. We'll share out the slide deck. But if you're interested in any of the projects we mentioned, and we also have some other resources that will be helpful. There's a QR code to our slide deck. So you are welcome to do that, and we will take questions. Any questions?
My English is not very good. I love your presentation, and your mission are very interesting and amazing. So how can we access to your presentation? With the QR?
With the QR code. Yeah, QR code will get you the whole slide deck. So all of the links that we've got there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll go in the app and do it the right way. But if you want it right this minute, it's
Okay.
right there.
Thank you.
Did you want us to request access to a slide deck?
It should be a view. Did it not go to view link? You know what? Sorry. No, I changed it back because I shared it out to a whole bunch of people for them to comment and changed it back to comment. Can you change it back to public? Yep. Thank you. Sorry. Sorry. I knew I was forgetting to do something today.
right. Does it work now?
Perfect. Thank you.
I
Sorry about that.
have a question.
Okay.
Like, do you have like a favorite project or a project you think was like the most successful, and like what was the key ingredient that you felt like really like made that one shine?
Favorite project's definitely Ethiopia project. We're still in the middle of it, so ask me in 2 years about kind of successes. But even just so far, I think again 20,000 professors getting through this, and we have what is it? I think 1,200 core shells requested in process. Just in the space of basically a year, 15 months that they've had access to even request a core shell in Open edX. We've had 1,200, and so I think that is one of those things where you ask me where we are in 2 years. We'll probably come back and do a whole here's what we accomplished in 5 years, and it's gonna be really cool. But seriously, 50 public institutions across the entire country. We actually are training Open edX developers in Ethiopia. We opened kind of a course to that. And we thought it would just be like the ICT teams who would open it up. We just left it open. It's like, I don't want to have to enroll every ICT director, left it open. We have 40,000 enrollments in that course because students are like, I want to learn how to code. And I'm like, okay, that would be great. That's not what this course teaches you. It's you already know how to code, but seriously, just that's the interest, and so that's for me. That's my favorite project. Now, do you have a favorite project or success story?
I would say it's same. So the Ethiopia project, because it's been so big, and I think the big part of it too is where she talked about leadership. We have the Ministry of Education involved in that one, and so there are a lot of things that they set forth, and the presidents of the institutions listen. It's 50 universities across Ethiopia, so that one is just a fun one to watch people really grow and do things with it.
Yeah, having the Ministry of Education involved does make things easier and helpful.
Hi, great project. Very interesting. I just wanted to know, maybe it's a trick question or at least a little bit philosophical, but how do you deal, since you're working with so many countries with so many backgrounds and stuff like that, how do you deal with the different mindsets, the different cultural backgrounds? How do you get over probably some communication misinterpretations? How do you handle that?
Carefully. No, actually, and I neglected to mention this. One of our other Open edX instances is a partnership with Starbucks, and they use their platform both to train their employees in 100 countries. Don't quote me on that. I think is where they are. And they've localized to 13 different languages. And so one of the ways is just to translate, like literally. And that's sometimes something that you just have to do. If, and that's, one of the first assumptions when I heard about the Ethiopia project was, do I get to learn to code in Amharic? We coded in Arabic, and that was fun. And sometimes you do, like literally it is just meet them where they are in their language and get someone local to review your content and make sure you aren't having a dog in there, which apparently is a thing that in Arabic countries was a huge no-no. It was like, oh, okay, we can't use that pet the dog reference. We'll come up with something different. So it is very carefully. And that I think is one of the biggest, if you are an outsider coming in, one of the first lessons is, how do you do things? How can we help you learn lessons from what we've done, not to do things the way we've done things, but to do things differently than you're doing now to get to that goal in a way that works for you. So that localization, and we're not trying to replicate ASU in 150 countries. We're trying to replicate access to education at ASU's scale in the entire globe, whatever that looks like for whatever that context is. And I think that really is the most important thing, is we're not going to do things our way in your country. We're going to help you do online whatever works for you. So I think that's the really kind of underlying thing about that. That's how you go everywhere. There are there are some universal kind of, what do we call them, global design principles that we use. And I'm happy to share those with you if you're looking for some actually more helpful suggestions than that. We do have some.
I'll add one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes because I end up teaching directly, sometimes I just let them discuss amongst themselves a little bit, because you have some mindsets. They're like, this will never work in my country because. And so I have someone else from their country answer that and say, no, we could probably, maybe not that way, but this way. So they come up with their ideas instead of me trying to say, yes, it will, So that's a little bit of what I do as well. Plant the seed and let them talk, discuss.
I think we're out of time, but another hand for the team at ASU. And as a member of Axum Collaborative, who's had a great opportunity to work with Elizabeth, these projects are amazing. I really love what ASU is doing, and it's been a pleasure to work with you, Elizabeth. So thank you so much.
Should have called out. Serena and I worked on the coding course together, and we were super excited about that. So
Thank you.
Thank you for that. For using it. That is awesome. Thank you.